Hello, Green Team. We are on our new series, Marketing a Listing. This series is meant to go from the point when you have a signed listing agreement with your sellers to the point that you actually receive offers receive your first offer for your listing. So that's kind of the topics we're covering during this series. This is part 1 of 6. To take you through the 6 parts we're going to be going through. First off, activating a listing in the MLS. And then we'll go through presenting the property, utilizing the internet for exposure, promoting a listing locally, hosting open houses, and then giving weekly marketing updates during the process. So again, this goes from getting a signed listing agreement until you get your first offer. And today, talking about activating a listing, we're going to go through 5 different areas. So first off, once we activate the listing, sending to sellers, and then enabling showing time, hanging a lockbox, installing a sign, and verifying syndication. The last series we ended with how to enter all of the information into the MLS and save as incomplete for your listing, including adding photos and supplements. Today we're talking about we've clicked the activate listing button, and the first thing we want to do is we want to send our active listing to our sellers. So I'm going to go through that real quick. What we're going to do is we're going to send them an MLS link, which basically shows them the full MLS printout so that they can review things like any particulars about the house, inclusions, exclusions, the public remarks. And this is an opportunity for you to send it to your sellers and say, hey, it just went active. Let me know if there's anything I need to adjust. And it kind of makes sure it gives us kind of a second point of reference for the sellers to be able to correct anything that we may have messed up on sending it. If you're sending your listing to your sellers, all you have to do is go into any listing. And I'm just going to grab a random one real quick. So if I was sending this to my sellers, I'm going to click my checkbox and I'll click email. And there I can type my seller's contacts. And I can just say your listing is active. You can see this is what I've used in the past. And then I just put a little message, hey, your listing is active. Feel free to check it out. Let me know what questions you have and if there's anything you see that I need to adjust on the posting. This will be syndicated to our over 400 plus real estate websites, but keep in mind this does vary in how much time it takes to get to all those websites, from a couple hours to even up to 24 hours. So please be patient, but once we get syndicated to all those websites, people will be able to see your listing everywhere they're possibly looking for real estate. And that's kind of what we want to communicate during this point to our sellers. So once we have sent to our sellers and we've asked them for the feedback and explained to them how long it takes to syndicate to sites like realtor.com or Zillow, we are ready to start really promoting the listing. So I'm going to go on to our next step here. So we've got it in the MLS. Now we can go hang a lockbox and put a sign up at the house. We do not put the sign up and hang the lockbox prior to it going in the MLS because we don't want people going by the house, seeing the sign, calling our office or calling their realtor and saying, hey, I see a sign out here. This house must be for sale. And it makes all the other realtors in our office look bad because we can't find the listing because you haven't actually put it in the MLS yet. So it's always the order of it gets activated in the MLS, then we go hang our sign in lockbox. Now, to get a lockbox, you need to have your active printout from the MLS. So again, if I were doing this listing here, I would just check my box and I would go to print and I would go to agent full and I would print that off. And you actually have to print it off, or I guess you could have it on your phone as a PDF, and take it to the Norman Board of Realtors, and you'll show that to them and they will check you out a lockbox. You get to keep that lockbox. And as long as you only have one listing at a time, that's all you'll ever need. If you get a second listing at the same time, you'll need to go back to the board with your new active printout, and show them that you have 2 listings so that you can get your second lockbox out. Again, you get to keep that lockbox until if you lose it or something like that, you would have to buy your next one. But those are checked out and part of your board dues, and that's how you get your lockbox. When you are putting your lockbox on a house, you will set up a shackle code with the board. And so to actually put your lockbox, say, on the front doorknob, you will go into your super app. You'll click the open shackle button, type in your code, which your code is associated with your lockboxes, and that will allow you to take the top part of the lockbox. This part right here will come off. Make sure you push in the bottom and the red lights blinking here. even if you're taking off the shackle instead of pulling out the key, you'll still have to push up the bottom here and turn the red light on. As you push it in, the red light will start beeping here. And once you type in your code, it'll give you a little notification and you can pull it out and go hook it on the doorknob and push it back in. So that's kind of how you do it. We like to hang these on the front door as much as possible, or as close to the front door as possible. Sometimes you just won't have that option for whatever reason, the knob doesn't work, or something like that. You can sometimes hang it on like a lamp post or something right next to the front door. But what you want to do is make sure you communicate to the realtors where that lockbox is, because we want to be a friend to all realtors, and we don't want to have people running around the house trying to find the lockbox and maybe setting up everyone with a bad taste in their mouth before they even walk in the house. So communicate with your sellers on where you're going to hang it and make sure you get it hung there, so that everyone can access it easily. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to put our sign in the yard. So these posts and panels are in the back of the office in the sign room. You will get, when you have your first listing, 3 customized panels for yourself. And then there are some posts in the back room that everyone can use. And they look kind of like this. Some of them are put together and some of them aren't fully put together yet. If you get one that's not put together, basically there's one bolt that goes in them and it connects the 2 pieces, the cross beam and the vertical beam. And that's all you have to do to actually put it together. If you think it's a complicated process, it's really just one bolt to put the 2 pieces together, relatively easy. And then you'll put your little rider holders up at the top. Your eye bolts go down here with your carabiners that actually connect your panel to your sign. If you're wondering where you get all these parts, they're in the bottom drawer in the sign room labeled sign hardware. You can see you got the sign riders in here and the wing nuts and the eye bolts and everything's in here. And then the next part is you actually got to put this thing in the ground. So you take your anchor, which are also in the sign room, and you'll hammer this into the ground. Make sure you're paying attention to which way these bolts are pointing, because the holes are sometimes on different parts of the sign. Like you can see this sign has the bolts on the inside and they may be on the outside on that one. So make sure you know where those holes are going to line up. We always want the sign opening to the road, meaning this post should be furthest away from the road and we're perpendicular to the road. And so the post is furthest away from the road, the panel is closest to the road. So make sure your bolts are in the right direction. They should have wing nuts on them, on the bolts on the anchors already. If not, again, they're in this bottom drawer here of the sign drawer. So you pound this into the ground, you push your post over the top of it, and then you screw in those wing nuts and it covers up on these 2 holes. And then your sign's ready to go. You hang your panel on these carabiners on the eye bolts. Happy to help anybody that has trouble with this, but it's relatively easy process once you go through it once or twice. I would recommend having at least a half sledge, a 2.5 or a 5-pound sledge to hammer these in. They do get tough, especially when it hasn't rained for a while. These can be tough to get into the ground. Okay, so we got the sign in the ground, and now we need to verify our syndication. So what we would do is, let me go over one more thing before I get to this. So the other thing we want to do, once we activate this in the MLS, we want to click the enable showing time button. And it's going to take you to a page that looks just like this. So we want to set it up to where people can schedule their showings on the property. So I'm going to go through these questions real quick with you, and this is just an example of what it looks like. So it says allow them to request appointments online, which we're going to say yes. We're going to allow in-person and virtual appointments usually. Showing restrictions. So there are options here, either appointment required, which means they have to send a request and we have to approve the request, or you can do a go and show, which just basically means they request and it's automatically approved. Like a vacant listing would be an example of that. And the other option is view instructions only, which I don't really recommend using. If you think you want to use that, come talk to me and let's discuss why you would want to use that. But in general, you should either do an appointment required if it's an occupied listing, or a go and show if it's vacant and doesn't matter when they want to show it. And then this says, is the listing agent accompanied? Is this a listing agent accompanied showing? This just means, did your seller say that you have to be there for all the showings? In general, we try not to do this because it kind of can cramp the style of the buyer's agent and also maybe make the showing a little less comfortable with you in there. But if your sellers require it, then you can put that here. The feedback template, we usually use the ShowingTime template, but feel free to make your own template. And then you want to say how you want to be told about the appointment. So we can confirm appointments. I always do text, and then notify if confirmed or canceled. I always do text. I don't recommend doing all of these because it gets a little bit annoying. I highly don't recommend doing showing voice because it calls you every time, and that can get very annoying. But you want to make sure you have it in a format that you're actually going to be checking consistently, which for me is texting. And you can actually approve the appointments by the text. It just says this agent wants to show the property at this time, text Y or N to confirm. And then this would just be if you're wanting to share your showing approvals with your clients. I usually text it to them separately. So I like to be in control of that, but you could automatically share it if you'd like to. Lead time is important and I think misunderstood a lot of time. So this is saying how much lead time do the sellers want to get out of their house before showing? And there's two options here, including required and suggested. So I don't like to do required ever because it blacks out the times, and who knows, the sellers may be out of town or not even at the house for the day. So we just messed up an opportunity for someone to come see the house. So I always work off of suggested showing time. I like to do a 2-hour suggested, but it's totally up to the sellers what they're most comfortable with. You put in the suggested and then it will just say, just to let you know. If someone requests it too soon, it'll say, just to let you know, this may be too soon for them to be able to approve, but we'll send it to them anyway. So I like to use the suggested lead time. Minimum appointment length, I always leave it at 15 minutes. Maximum appointment length, I always leave it 30 minutes, but you're welcome to work off of that. I think in general, those times work, and we can be a little bit flexible if people have to do something different, but I like to work that way. Allow scheduling overlaps, which means can multiple agents show it at the same time? I like to say no. I don't really see a good positive in multiple agents being there at the same time, and again, cramping each other's style and maybe making it a less positive experience for the buyer. So I always say no here. And then buffer time is just how much time between appointments. And usually this is no buffer time. Down here, we're going to put any access information, including if this is a keypad that you get into the front door, or if it's just a super box, you would put that and where the super box is. And then down here, you would put in your information, including where the super box is and if there's an alarm or anything like that. And then any driving directions, you can even copy and paste these from the MLS. Once you do that, a little green button will pop up that says save up here, and you'll click save, and then boom, your showing time is enabled. The first time you do it, might be a good idea to have someone do a quick test showing just to make sure it's working, because that's always a little bit nerve-wracking. But once we have showing time set up, then people can actually start showing the house. And then the last thing I want to go over here is this syndication I briefly mentioned. It does take some time sometimes to get to places like Zillow and Realtor.com. And as much as I hate talking about Zillow, there's a ton of agents that, or a ton of buyers that are looking at Zillow all the time. So we need to be on Zillow if we're going to be doing our fiduciary responsibility for our clients. So we need to make sure it's on Zillow. Sometimes it takes a little bit of time. The other thing we've noticed is sometimes it grabs the old photos. So photos from a past listing. And if that happens, you want to make sure that you get the correct photos and the correct info in there, not from a past listing, but from your listing. So we can go through how to do that in Zillow, but basically what I'm asking you to do is to make sure you check this every time that it's syndicating, especially to the big sites like Realtor.com and Zillow. We don't see that problem as much with Realtor.com, more commonly with Zillow and its affiliates. But we want to make sure the correct info is up there, because I guarantee your sellers are looking at it, and people that are potentially going to be future customers are also looking at it. So you want to make sure it looks good. So this is the process of day one. We just got to activate the listing, got to sign the yard, the lockbox, showing time set up, and we verified we're syndicated everywhere. So hopefully we're going to start getting some showings, and we're going to talk about that process in the next video. I'll see you guys over there.